Welcome, this is a recorded session of the Post-Quantum Cryptography Conference of the PKI Consortium. This conference would not have been possible without our sponsors, PQ Shield, SSL.com, Entrust, Keyfactor, HID Global, and the organizational support of the Post-Quantum Cryptography Working Group of the PKI Consortium, and in particular, Entrust, Keyfactor, and Logius. Would you like to join the PKI Consortium? Go to pkic.org/join, or contact us if you would like to become a sponsor.
Our next presentation is from Luke Valenta. Luke is a research engineer at Cloudflare, excuse me. He has a broad interest in network protocol, or network and protocol measurements, applied cryptography. His bio goes on and on around really cool stuff. But most importantly, prior to joining Cloudflare, and I think this speaks a lot to the quality of the presentation we're about to find out, Luke got his PhD from University of Pennsylvania in applied cryptography and the measurement of cryptographic devices. So without further ado, let's welcome Luke to the podium.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. So yeah, like you said, I'm Luke from Cloudflare. I'm on the research team there. We've been the team kind of driving post-quantum adoption at Cloudflare. And the talk today is about why the internet still isn't using post-quantum certificates, even though NIST has already standardized MLDSA and other algorithms, but why we're not using them yet. So first, a little bit of background on Cloudflare and our role in the WebPKI. So Cloudflare runs a big global network. About 20% of websites use our CDN and DDoS protection services, among others. We handle about over 60 million HTTP requests per second. So from this, like in the WebPKI context, if browsers are the client, then Cloudflare is the server. And yeah, we care deeply about a private, secure, and fast internet. So we've worked on a whole bunch of different technologies: TLS 1.3, QUIC, encrypted client hello. And today we're going to be talking about the migration to post-quantum cryptography. So what we've learned from our experience working in the WebPKI is that making any changes is hard. There are lots of different users and stakeholders involved. Everybody has their own requirements and priorities. And protocol ossification is a persistent problem. So if you design protocols to be flexible, but if you don't use all of that flexibility in your day-to-day use of that protocol, then there are going to be broken implementations, and making any changes is going to be hard. So TLS 1.3 is a really good example of this. It took years to roll out TLS 1.3, but just due to broken middle boxes, etc. And in the post-quantum migration, we're running into similar problems. So first, so we all know quantum computers are coming, and it breaks the cryptography that we use today. So just a quick look at that cryptography. So on the left side of the slide here, we have public key cryptography, we have key agreement, and digital signatures. So key agreement is used to establish a shared key across a insecure channel. And then you can later use that session key to do symmetric encryption. And then digital signatures are to verify the authenticity of messages. So make sure you know who you're talking to, or who a message is actually who you think it's from. Now with post-quantum, with large-scale or cryptographically relevant quantum computers running Shor's algorithm, you get complete breakage of public key cryptography that we use today, RSA, elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman. Then on the right side here, we have the symmetric encryption. So things like AES and then hash function SHA. So here there's also a quantum algorithm, Grover's algorithm, which theoretically would reduce the security of these. So naively, the attack's not nearly as bad. Naively, you think you need to double the key sizes to avoid any threat from Grover's algorithm. In reality, if like some in-depth analysis shows that we probably don't need to touch the key sizes we're using today. It's not going to be feasible for quantum computers to have better attacks than classical. So AES 128 is probably going to be fine. But if you're worried, you can double your key sizes. So the focus of this talk is on migrating the internet / WebPKI. I'm going to use them interchangeably to post-quantum signatures and certificates. And my colleague Bas gave a similar talk at this venue in 2023. So this gives some updates to that talk. One key point I'd like to drive home is that there are two migrations. The first one is key agreement, and the second one is signatures. So key agreement, we've heard harvest now, decrypt later. Your data today is at risk of somebody who can just store all your communication and then wait till they have access to a large-scale quantum computer to decrypt. So really, it's important to do this migration as soon as you can. Signatures are a little less urgent. The attacks aren't feasible until a large-scale quantum computer already exists. So we need to start doing this migration, start thinking about how to do it, but actually flipping the switch to using post-quantum signatures is a little bit less urgent. So first I'll talk about key agreement briefly. It's urgent and easier, but it's not without its own challenges. So one of the first challenges we saw with key agreement is that it still requires larger key sizes than what we're used to. And this causes some bugs in software. So for example, if you have larger key sizes, sometimes you need to split that into 2 packets going over the network instead of just 1. And that causes all sorts of havoc. You can kind of mitigate this by doing early testing and deploying, which we've done, and see my colleague Suleiman's talk tomorrow on some of our experiences with all of that early testing. Second challenge here is that there are lots of different clients and servers on the internet. Cloudflare is one big server, but we're not the only one. But fortunately, I guess we can make significant progress here by deploying to major browsers and Cloudflare and other vendors that kind of represent a lot of servers and clients. So we can, I guess, deploy post-quantum key agreement in a few places, and you can have a big impact. And a third challenge is that all of these algorithms are new, and I mean, the math's been around for a while, but we haven't been using them for a long time. So it's kind of hard to establish the same trust as we have in the classical algorithms. And that's where hybrids come in. You can kind of get the best of both worlds with only a little bit of overhead by using hybrid for key agreement. So this gives just sort of a, Cloudflare colored timeline of post-quantum key agreement deployment in the WebPKI. So in 2019, we started doing some experiments with Chrome, running one of the algorithms we tried ended up being broken, but we were using hybrids, so we were fine. But we did some experiments to see what shapes of post-quantum algorithms performed best for the WebPKI for the internet. In 2022, NIST announced their finalists for the competition, and we deployed support for the kind of pre-standard version of the ML-Chem algorithm. Then in 2023 is when we started to see real deployment. So Chrome started deployed at 1% of browsers or of browser installs, started using ML-Chem in hybrid mode. And then Google also added server support, and then we worked on adding internal support for, support for both our internal services and the connection from Cloudflare back to customer origin servers. And then now brings us 2024. The final standards are out from NIST. Implementations updated to the final standards. We deployed it, and then now that the final standards are out, more browsers have picked this up, and we see a lot more library support. And then in 2025, if you haven't upgraded yet to use post-quantum key agreement, then you're kind of behind. You do this as quickly as possible. And then just to get a sense of where we're at with post-quantum key agreement deployment, this at radar.cloudflare.com, we have this live updating. So we're now at the start of 2025. We're at over 30% of all connections to Cloudflare from what we think are humans instead of bots are now protected with post-quantum encryption. So that's key agreement. It was urgent, but also easier because only like two parties needed to deploy it. We see 30% plus deployment, but this took 5 years. Now for signatures, which is the main part of the main thing this talk is about. So with signatures, there are many more parties involved. We have HSM manufacturers, the certificate transparency ecosystem, everybody who manages certificates on their servers has to make some changes here. A second challenge is of the standardized algorithms, none are as good as what we had before performance-wise. So here we have public keys and signatures. The top two are looking pretty good, but unfortunately those are not post-quantum. So MLDSA is the third option there. This is the lowest key size for MLDSA. You can see it's still significantly more bytes on the wire that we have to send with the public key and signature sizes. And then the stateless hash-based SLHDSA, stateful hash-based LMS, and then the soon-to-come Falcon, or will be soon FNDSA on the bottom row. It looks better performance-wise, but there are some issues with side channel attacks against the floating point computation. Well, this is what I was about to say. So Falcon is performance-wise, it looks pretty good, but we don't really know how to do this yet in the signing operations in constant time. So it's I don't know. It kind of comes with this warning label. Like you can use Falcon in certain situations where you're doing offline signatures, where an attacker is unlikely to be able to do a side channel attack. Yeah, take care. But for doing signature verification, it's not a problem for Falcon. And the third problem here is that there are a lot of signatures on the web. So the web was kind of designed with the assumption that signatures were going to be cheap, so let's just throw them everywhere. But signatures are no longer cheap in the post-quantum context. So here, if I'm making a TLS connection, if I'm connecting to a website, the server has to send back a certificate chain, and then there's a signature in that TLS handshake on the transcript of that. And if you add up all these signatures, so at the very top is the root certificate signing the intermediate certificate. We don't actually have to transmit the root certificate, fortunately. That's like embedded in browsers and trust stores. But the rest of these, we kind of have to send over the network. It adds up to 5 signatures, 2 public keys. So let's look at what this looks like in today's, with the classical algorithms. We end up, it adds up to just over a kilobyte. So that's not too bad. That fits within one network packet. So that's what we're happy with. If you just swap in MLDSA directly, and this is the cheapest version of MLDSA, it goes up to over 14 kilobytes. This doesn't come for free. We can do things that are a little bit more clever, though. We don't have to use the same signature algorithm everywhere. So if we use, so I said Falcon is a little risky to use if the signing operation can be timed with a side channel attack. But if you're running your root in some protected system, maybe you're not as worried about side channel attacks. So you can use Falcon for doing these signing operations that can't be easily timed, and then just hope the attacker isn't in your system. So if we do Falcon everywhere, but then only use MLDSA for the online signature over the TLS transcript hash, then the numbers look a bit better. It's like 7 kilobytes. So it's 7 kilobytes versus a little over 1 kilobyte using traditional, but like how much is actually too many, or how many bytes is too many? We did an experiment measuring performance of, we put a bunch of dummy data in certificates and measured how well that performed on the internet. And we found that about every 1 kilobyte you added to this certificate slowed the connection down, or slowed the connection establishment down by about 1.5%. The Chrome team has stated that like adding 7 kilobytes is going to be implausible unless a cryptographically relevant quantum computer is tangibly imminent. So there's a little bit of wiggle room to increase this bound, but they're basically saying they're not going to deploy what we have now unless the quantum computers get a little bit closer to reality. And then in a blog late last year, we shared some numbers on from Cloudflare's perspective. We looked at quick connections, which are the version of TLS, which is over UDP, that is mostly only deployed by browsers right now. So this is kind of trying to get an estimate of the number of bytes that we actually transmit over the lifetime of a connection between browsers and Cloudflare. We found that at the median, this is about 4.4 kilobytes. So that means with the 1 kilobyte classical certificates, so that already takes up a quarter of all the data transmitted over the lifetime of over half of connections. So increasing this to 7 kilobytes for the authentication part is going to be a significant impact on on these connections. I mean, I guess the importance of every one of these connections is on browsing experience is yet to be measured, but just this data point is interesting. So I guess summing up here, like it's not great, the post-quantum signature performance. We could deploy it if we had to, but we'd have to eat the performance cost. And really the risk here is that performance hit is just going to delay adoption until it's too late, until quantum computers are capable of doing these practical attacks. And we might not know when the first attacks are done. It might not be public. So not all hope is lost. There are some signatures in the NIST on-ramp competition that do perform better than MLDSA and FNDSA. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about these in my breakout session, which is after this current break and upstairs. So there are some promising submissions. The security isn't clear yet. We need to go through the whole competition to see what survives. So we shouldn't assume that we're going to get a better signature algorithm. We should be prepared to deploy what we have. And we do have some techniques for making post-quantum signatures a little bit less, make them hurt a little bit less. So one technique is to not transmit intermediate certificates. You just ship them to browsers out of band instead. There's a proposal to use KEM, or a key agreement mechanism, or key encapsulation mechanism, instead of signatures for authentication. So that saves some bytes on the wire as well. And we can also think about some more dramatic changes to the WebPKI, like Merkle tree certificates, which I'll also talk about in the breakout session. So just a timeline for post-quantum signatures. So in 2021, we did some experiments to see how they'd perform over the live internet. I talked about this experiment already. In 2022, we have the announced standards. 2024, the final drafts and TLS libraries are adding support. But we still didn't see any deployment of post-quantum signatures in the WebPKI. I expect that in 2025, we'll see some more agreement around standards for how to do post-quantum signatures in TLS. and then maybe some deployment in internal PKIs, but probably not in the WebPKI. And then like 2026 and beyond, I think, is when we're going to actually see post-quantum certificates in the wild in the WebPKI. Yeah, so signatures are a little bit less urgent, but the real risk is that we don't deploy soon enough because of the performance issues. And there are other signatures involved in the WebPKI as well. So DNSSEC, a lot of, but we call it fancy crypto. It's all the stuff that's not directly confidentiality or authentication. That still in early stages, a lot of research to be done. And I can take any questions. Thanks.
Wonderful. If there's any questions in the room, please feel free to approach the mic. And if you're online, use that Ask a Question button to submit your questions. John, do we have any? Yep, a couple of questions here online. And like I said, if you're in the room, please feel free to approach the mic and ask your question.
So our first question is, do you foresee any big issues with regard to quantum safe certs in WebPKI and the tendency for shorter certificate lifetime?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a great question. So post-quantum certificates or quantum safe certificates are going to be much larger, and that puts a lot more stress on not just the TLS handshake, but also systems like certificate transparency, where every single certificate in the WebPKI gets logged. And I help run a CT log, and there are plenty of issues already with classical certificates. So yeah, I think the larger sizes will put strain in a lot of different places.
Thanks for a great presentation. One question I have is, given that the new PQC algorithms are much more dependent on high quality entropy, and that's also a really hard thing to discover, what the quality of the entropy is. Do you have any concerns about, just a wide variety of quality of these certificates?
Yeah, so with as far as entropy goes, it's I mean, I think the traditional or classical entropy, I mean, it is already technically quantum if you think of I don't know, solar rays or whatever the thing is, but yeah, that at least from Cloudflare's perspective, it's not a like random number generation isn't the I think the main concern.
There's another online question. How efficiently were you able to maintain interoperability with browsers for Chem over time? As a matter of fact, it seems that the recent Chromium-based browsers are not able to perform hybrid Chem on Cloudflare anymore.
Yeah, good question. So we coordinate with the browser teams, and yeah, for this report, I think I may have seen that come up in internal chat. It's I mean, Cloudflare, yeah, it's all about coordinating with browsers and making sure we're on the same page. But sometimes there have been some interoperability bugs. But it's mostly just about testing and trying to get as few of those interop bugs as possible. Because we're moving, everyone's moving from the pre-quantum or the pre-standard versions to the final versions for Kyber. So I think if I remember correctly, we were using a different TLS terminator, which was experimental, and there was a for originally testing the early versions of Kyber, and this was on a specific website my team managed, and then we moved to the main TLS terminator that the company uses when the final standard was added, or support was added, and then there was somehow the old version got turned on for a specific website, and that caused yeah, there was a interop issue there.
Go ahead in the room, please.
Hey, Luke. Thanks for the presentation. So the PKI that you're talking about here is used in a wealth of web cases. Am I correct to assume that this data you shared here is only for the web browsing use case?
Correct. Yeah, this is all focused on the WebPKI, and the public data is on Cloudflare Radar is all connections to Cloudflare servers over the public internet.
Yeah. So the reason I'm asking is because web browsing and web pages open a lot of connections. As a use case, it's an interesting use case, but I have other use cases that are called web because they use the same PKI with SCT certificates, etc. And these use cases are different. Like my employer's use case uses TLS API calls. That it's one API call that does a bunch of things and then closes, right? So I mean, I call that web as well because it's the same PKI, but the requirements are a little different. That's why I'm asking. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. For this song, yeah, I mean, we care about API traffic as well, but at least for the stats we showed on the post-quantum transition, we tried to filter to browser or to non-bot or non-API. If you include the non-human traffic as well, the overall number goes down a little bit. But we show both on Radar.
There's another online question here. Do you have a standard recovery plan for the eventuality that certificates turn up hacked?
So for key agreement, we're deploying in hybrid mode right now. That kind of that's the solution we were happy with. For post quantum certificates, it's I don't know. It's a decision above my pay grade, I'd say. It's whether to deploy in a composite certificate or not. I think we're going to be, we'll support what the community and the IETF and standards settle on, and we'll contribute to those conversations.
I had a question for you.
Yep.
Given the nature of CT logs that you mentioned earlier and the move towards 45-day certs, is there a point of time in which post-quantum plus short validity of certs starts to basically break the CT log infrastructure or overtax it?
An exciting new development in the CT ecosystem is called static CT. It's a new paradigm that actually makes it more efficient. It should be able to handle I don't know, something like 30 times the current certificate issuance rate. So I think as more CT logs move to this new paradigm, and then we'll be able to handle post-quantum certificates with shorter lifetimes, but at least the traditional CT logs are going to have some trouble to keep up.
And with that, Luke, thank you very much. That's time. It's time for a break. Great job.